All right. Welcome back. First and foremost, thank you very much for joining us, all like 13 of you out there, because it's 2:30 in the afternoon. So
it'll grow.
Shane,
the word will spread.
The word will spread. Mystery guy in the corner, Shane, who works hard to make this work for us. He's really nice and gives me reminders like, hey, by the way, since we don't all have the same friends, which is what makes us awesome, remember to share this on your timeline so like other people could watch it, and you might have people unfriend you, and that's kind of awesome too. Helps you sort out some priorities in your life. So there's the laugh that only we can hear, right? I never know when he's going to show up.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of it works. Isn't that how that commercial works?
I love that commercial. Yes. Welcome back, Mike.
How you doing?
I got here a whole 3 minutes early.
Yeah, you're like cooking with gas today.
I made like a week almost without drinking Monsters. Now I have 2. So hang on. I was on a really cool. Hey, I'm just going to jump the bus here. Here we go.
Like Fonzie?
Why was
like Fonzie jumping the bus?
Fonzie was pretty awesome. Man, he jumped sharks, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Why was I almost late getting here? Because I was on the phone with Live Free Armory, with Chris from Live Free Armory. So, by the way, I think he told me he's going to go back and say, hey, I'm going to give you these numbers. He shipped half of those, the 9mm rifles I've been telling everybody about.
Oh, yeah, I saw those.
Yep.
I saw those on the
they
website or whatever.
They shipped half of them today, and they're shipping half of them Thursday, so that's awesome. So it's going to be fun. Going to be lots of...
A lot of interest in those? Or?
Yeah, and I think it'll create even more when people go out and actually shoot them and have fun, and I like mine. I think it's useful.
Well, I remember seeing those when you posted them on Facebook and your website, whatever, and I just remember how we talked on one of the podcast episodes several months ago about what I should do with my lower, and I was talking about, hey, I want to get a 9mm, and you're like, just buy one that's already built specifically for that, and don't try to make one.
Yes, do that.
And that's
I know that, especially being here in Cedar Rapids with all the Rockwell engineers and people that are way smarter than me, people like to build things, so I get that. I'm just not into that. It's like I just want to buy it and put bullets in it and shoot it, Because you discouraged me, though, I still have that lower sitting in my gun safe with nothing. I got nothing going. I know
with
what
it.
we're gonna do for it though, so we'll do something cool with it. So anyway, again, thank you for everybody joining us. All 16 of you now. I mean, the pressure's on. So what have you been doing, man? Let's start with your training. Why it's fresh in your mind.
So
the training you went to.
Yeah, so the training I went to, so it's been 2 weeks now. I went up to Minnesota, hung out with some of our friends up there that we know in that training group, and I attended Chris Fry's Practical Small Knife Skills 1 and 2 class, 2-day class. First day was 1 and second day was 2. Chris is out of New York, I think upstate New York, not New York City. And he's part of the ShivWorks collective, so it's a group of guys that are affiliated with Craig Douglas and his group. And the first day was more kind of the stuff that we teach, like not technical stuff, more practical stuff. If you have to use a knife, this is how you get somebody off you. This is what to target. So he talked about 2 places. Face and fork. So you target the face or you target the fork being where your 2 legs meet.
Yep.
Right? And kind of the joke is that you can't put a tourniquet on a taint. So that's kind of how
mystery laugh.
Right, mystery laugh. Yeah, it's funny, man. Yeah. But it's true.
Yeah,
you can't.
And it's bad if it gets you.
Right, there's a lot of blood down there. But that's kind of how the way the first day went. And then, as with all ShivWorks courses, there was some force on force at the end.
Sure.
With you had some real. So the whole class we drilled with realistic pressure. Maybe he'd say go 20%.
Yeah.
Go 40%.
Yeah.
As you're trying to deploy your knife or whatever, I really was concentrating on using the configuration that I normally carry my knife in, and I came to a few conclusions.
You always do, don't you?
Yeah, you always do when you. I mean, that's why you go to training, right? So I tend to carry mine with a pocket shield, which Raven Concealment sells those, so you can look them up on the internet. Chris Fry actually designed them. It's a piece of plastic you can put in your pocket that kind of hides the printing of many items. I put a lot of things on it, and you can just kind of like hang stuff on it, right?
Yep.
So I tend to do that, put my knife and pepper spray and my flashlight on that. So I had all my other stuff configured that way, and I learned a couple things. Number one, I had to reconfigure my pocket shield so it was a little bit easier to grab my knife. And the second thing I learned, or kind of reinforced, because I learned it when Alessandro was here, when you hosted him a couple of years ago for Safer Faster Knife. And what I learned was folding knives are crap for self-defense. Like, I'm going to carry one to cut boxes,
Yeah.
but it's not my primary defensive tool as far as edged weapons, because, man, when somebody's trying to wrap you up, it is hard to get those things open. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Alessandro and Ken were here teaching, it was surprising to learn, it's like, oh, hey, this state you can own a full auto, but you can't carry a fixed blade knife,
Right.
goofy laws.
Right.
Which, yeah. So my fixed blade Benchmade in my pocket's probably not the best thing in the world, is it?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's better. It's it's that risk versus benefit thing we talk about. Like, do you carry a revolver? Do you carry a semi-auto? Are you going to carry a folding knife? You're going to carry a straight?
My folding knife's really my decoy.
Yeah.
But yes, I use it every day to open boxes.
Yeah. So I just wouldn't count on one as my primary, get off me tool.
Sure.
So that was the first day, and finished up with an Evolution. I actually didn't do the Evolution because I wimped out because I'm injured right now.
You are injured.
I am, but I got to see. I don't know if he's watching. I'm gonna tattle on him right now. Our buddy Jason, who was here on the podcast, Jason Clark, was in that class, and he did go through the Evo, and he absolutely mauled the guy that was aggressing him.
Sure.
And he actually got to a point where he threw his attacker off him, but then he leaped on him and continued to stab him.
Yeah.
And Chris goes, "Stop. What did you just do?"
Yeah.
And Jason looked, and like this light dawned on his you could just see the moment of realization. He goes, "I just murdered him."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yes, you did."
Yeah.
So, I mean, teaching point for everybody, right?
Sure.
You can't get too focused. You still got to think about what's going on.
And when I say that's just training, man, the emotions flow in training too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
yeah.
But imagine like that guy just attacked you while with your family. Tell me that's not emotional,
Right?
To where you're like, hey, I can't let him near my family. But yeah, don't jump on top of him, stab him back in the neck more.
Yeah.
No?
Once you disengage, you need to go. So that was day one, and then day two was more technical. So we did some more. This is a movement you have to complete, and this is a series of movements you have to do. This is a block and a parry and a thrust and slash and all these things. So more technical knife work.
Parry, thrust.
Parry, thrust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that. I know all those moves. I watch cartoons.
Right.
I'm covered. Yep. The mystery laugh gets me every time.
I know.
I have to work on that.
So my big takeaway from that day, though, was, and I actually brought this out in the debrief, is about 2:00 that day, I was done.
Yeah.
Like mentally done.
I talked to you, night one?
Yeah.
Night? Because you're like, dude, I'm going to bed. I'm going to watch, or you're going to watch a football game, but you're like, I'm burnt.
Yeah. But what that tells me, as far as our own instruction is, we do a pretty good job, I think, anyway, of watching that in students.
Sure.
But mental fatigue is a real thing.
Sure.
And
much more so in the kind of class you took.
Right. Well, any kind of class where you're unfamiliar with the material, I'm not a knife guy. That's why I'm going to these classes, to learn how to be a better knife guy. Mm-hmm. And learning all this, I was just overloaded mentally, and I was fatigued, and I was just like starting to check out about 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I had to really struggle to focus, and I could see my skills and my performance degrading. And that happens to we see that as well.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do. Yes. Well, that's cool. So again, the instructor's name was
Chris Fry,
and he works with
Shivworks Collective.
Awesome.
So check him out. I think he's coming back here to this area at some point.
We should do that.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get Craig Douglas to come here in September 2018.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Just a suggestion if you're
Just a
listening, Craig,
suggestion.
or
Yeah,
anybody
something
that knows Craig.
Yeah. All right. I have a couple people ready to sign up. What else you got? What's on your list? You're in charge today. I only have like one thing to talk about, man. My life's easy.
Is it easy?
Yeah. Well, no, my life actually isn't easy, but this part is.
So let's talk about your little trial experience.
Oh, you're going to go there first. All right.
Let's do it.
Still going on today. I think it probably goes all the way through Wednesday, I think. The Martin, whatever, self-defense trial. They use the word murder trial in the news. He's being charged with murder. So
what happened, though? What's the event?
This would be the event, if everybody remembers, about conflict, confrontation that ended up in a shooting that happened at the Walmart over here. Yeah. and involved. So here's just what they say in court. So when people are like, oh, Ernie's saying that, no, these are all things said in court. So basically what they're going to establish is the defense is trying to establish it was a drug rip, right? And you know what that means. So for the rest of us, that's like, hey, we're going to show up saying we're going to buy drugs, but then we're really just going to rip off the drugs from the guy and not pay him, right? So the defense, as in for Mr. Martin, is saying, and it was interesting. I encourage everybody, even though I stay up on these kind of things and I follow a lot of cases, I'll be the first one to say, this is the first time I just went and sat in a trial that I have nothing to do with. And you're just, and they're open to the public. You get to do that. I like how the assistant DA, he said, hey, it's your rights, man. Go use them. So I just sat in there, and it was just interesting to watch the whole thing from the very beginning, from the opening statements. And some of the interesting things, I understand they have to desensitize the jury. And what I mean by that is to establish that, hey, all these people are using drugs. All these people buy drugs. Yes, these people sell drugs. And so literally word for word, she said, her client went there to almost exactly word to word, simply make a business transaction. And I get it. They're drug dealers. So they don't hide that part in court.
But they're just trying to smooth over the fact that that's not what this is about.
Yeah, and I get that actually, again, there's a lot of people out there saying, if you shoot somebody while you're dealing drugs, then you automatically need to go to jail. Hey, I think, should we put drug dealers in jail? Yes. But the point is, I understand they're separating the shooting from the act of drug dealing.
Right.
I get it. But you could also start going into the fact that if you're going to have any success, maybe on the prosecution side, to prove that it was a robbery from the get-go, well, now it's during a commission of a crime, right? But it was interesting to hear things. So things I want people to know, by the way, things that happen in real life. So listening to the defense, interesting to hear her words say that the driver was struggling with, so Mr. Martin was in the front passenger seat, okay? And he shot the driver, and he shot a guy in the back seat. And he's claiming he did that in self-defense. And his defense attorney, literally, I sat there and listened to that, and I'm like, did she just say that out loud? Said that her client, at the moment the car started moving forward, did not know the make, model, and year to know whether it had airbags, and he didn't have a seatbelt on, so therefore he thought he was at a great risk of being injured sitting in the front seat driving away. Because he actually gets out of the car, gets back into the car with the gun. He's wearing the gun. So he gets out of the car, gets back in the car starts to drive off, and by the way, it'll all be released. That's all on film. There's video of all this. And as the car's going forward, he shoots the driver in the neck. And, she even said, well, once the driver grabbed his gun, he had to shoot him in self-defense. And this is just me. Like, I'm dumb, logical Ernie, right? I'm not a lawyer. I'm sitting here listening to that, and I'm like, if I grab your arm and the gun goes off, your finger was already on the trigger, right? And it was already pointed at my neck.
You would think.
Yeah.
Unless it's some sort of freak accident. I suppose that could happen, but
yeah, it could happen. And unicorns are delivering free Glocks here later.
And jelly beans. Glocks and jelly beans.
Two things I like. So my point is, and this is just my logic of it, saying, hey, how did a gun go off and shoot me right in the neck that you supposedly drew why I attacked you? And when you're using the words, when his own attorney's saying the gun went off when the driver grabbed his arm. And they refer to things like, let's go with some facts, like the facts of the magical black box, right? Like you can look in a car and say, hey, what was going on with this car at this very second? So she's like, for the first 2 seconds, the car was traveling forward all the way up to the speed of 20 whatever miles per hour. The driver was not turning the steering wheel. That's because he was busy attacking the person in the passenger seat. So I don't know about you, but my tactic to attack somebody is probably not going to include put the car in gear, pull out and turn, start to go across the Walmart parking lot, and then let go of the steering wheel and start attacking the front passenger, right? And this is just me, I could envision somebody choosing to do that because, oh my God, they look over and there's a gun pointed at them, right?
Yeah.
So, again, we're going to let the jury spot. And I don't want to talk about the jury and I'm not going to talk about the specifics. When the case is over and done with, I will talk about the jury. Even though me talking about them doesn't tell you who they are, They go to great detail, and just so you guys know this, they go to great lengths there, and the judge did a very good job giving the jury instruction stuff and making it clear that there was media there and all that. You can go and see pictures, but the jury's never in pictures. You know what I mean? The jury's not in the film, so that way they can be left alone. There was the jury, so you have 12 people and two, not substitutes. Sorry.
Alternates.
There you go, alternates sitting in front. But we'll talk about more of that makeup later.
Can you talk at all about the selection process without being too specific? Because we talk about it a lot in class, right?
No, now remember, I don't get to watch. We didn't watch the selection.
Oh, okay,
process.
I thought you were there for that.
No. This would be these 12 people and the two alternates have already been picked.
Already been selected.
Yep.
Okay.
When I made a comment about it on the CVO page, there was a guy even saying that he was one of the original 90 people, 90, but he got thrown out for whatever reason, and. I found that interesting, and I told him it'll be interesting to talk to him later to see what the questions were, to see, if there was some pivotal moment where he remembers, oh, well, they asked this, and I answered it this way, and next thing you know, I'm gone.
Yeah, you done messed up, Ron.
Yeah, and by messed up, it could just be you were honest. How do you feel about drug dealers? Oh, I think they're the scourge of the earth. Well, then you're not going to be on this jury.
You'd be a little prejudiced against our client here.
And I totally get it. I get that. But the interesting thing about the self-defense, so what wasn't in this defense, what they didn't provide in the opening statements, and they have videos to show and they have some recordings to listen to of the people involved in the shooting. But what they didn't have is any forensics other than the shell casings in the car, right? 2 rounds were fired in the car, and they recovered both those shell casings, and 2 projectiles that passed through human bodies, one through the driver and one through the passenger in the back seat. They recovered those, to match them and say, hey, these are identical. So scientifically, those bullets came out of the same gun, right?
Right.
And also, you have to understand the defense. And I put that link on the CVO page, and I said, read this, read it twice, whatever. Go read that. The defense absolutely is saying, oh, well, the prosecution's going to try to tell you that this, my client shot these 2 people. She's like, we know that. My client did shoot these 2 people. And so it's right then and there. What's Mass Ayub call that? An affirmative defense? I mean, you said you did it. You didn't say I'm innocent until proven guilty. You said I shot him.
Yeah, now you have to have an affirmative defense.
So it's kind of interesting that she, I was telling the mystery laugher in the corner, for watching my first murder trial from the get-go like that, from the beginning anyway, she wasn't knocking it out of the park in my opinion.
The lawyer, you mean?
The lawyer.
Yeah.
And, when she said, hey, the gun only went off when the driver grabbed his arm while they were struggling, and then he had to shoot in self-defense. And then he turned the shot. Literally, they can go back. This whole court transcripts will be out someday. She said, and then he turned and shot the man in the back seat that was also struggling with him. It's like, wow, you just made it like, hey, I shot one. Am I supposed to shoot the other? Right?
Yeah.
And I think all in her brain, she caught that and thought, hey, oh, yeah, by the way.
I better qualify this.
Yeah, qualify this. But what wasn't there is there's no gun. See, the gun's never recovered.
Why is that?
Well, he ran away with the gun. So there was no
Did it evaporate?
Yeah, I didn't get to talk. And, here I am today. It could be going on right now, so I'm kind of jealous. I have not got to hear him take the stand.
Uh-huh.
And so it'd be interesting. And I am literally playing armchair quarterback lawyer. You just tell yourself, it would just be interesting to see what kind of questions they're going to ask him. Like, hey, where's the gun? Why isn't the gun here? Why wouldn't you provide the gun? No permit to carry. I know that shocks you, so don't pass out from shock.
Yeah, I better have some more caffeine. I about fell over just there.
Didn't have a permit to carry. He had ran after this event takes place, he runs and gets in another vehicle. And a lot of that, even though you can find some of it in the media, it's out there now that you know what to look for. He runs and hops in another vehicle that had been following them all along, kind of like ghosting them, who dropped him off. That vehicle magically was found discarded later in Marion. So, you just tell yourself, the thing is, I understand when people say, well, that's circumstantial. I mean, I literally get it. It's like, oh, hey, you hopped in this vehicle. It drove away. They find it abandoned in Marion, and you don't have a gun to provide. You and I can just start looking at that and say, what kind of criminal element is this? Who just runs away from their car and leaves it? And who shoots somebody in self-defense and doesn't call the police? Like, who doesn't say, you and I, morally and ethically, you had to shoot that guy. Say like Jason's case, right? When your knife thing, you had to do these horrible things to this person, and justifiably so, to stay alive, right? But immediately, once you're safe, we want the police and we want EMS coming, right?
Right.
Like, if you can save him, great. That's awesome. Bonus. If you can't, that's science and anatomy and blood loss and not my fault. But this gentleman didn't do this. He didn't call the police. So for those of you listening, and maybe you'll pass this on your friend's timeline, like Mystery Laugher in the corner said, because if you are going to try to tell me, Ernie at Cedar Valley Outfitters, that you haven't read people on gun forums and social media talking about the power of stand your ground and how awesome it is and all these magical things it does for you, no, it's not a magical leprechaun sauce. And I want you to understand things. If you're going to use stand your ground, two things you absolutely, let alone that you better be justified in shooting the person. Like, that's a whole nother thing, right? Sure, you didn't have to run away, but you better be able to legally justify why you shot someone. Deadly force, right? But you have to provide your firearm to law enforcement, and you have to have made a call as soon as you could to report. When I say that crime, it's homicide. It's going to be justified homicide, right? So, you shoot me when I'm trying to kill you in the Walmart parking lot. You still shot a gun in city limits, discharged a gun in city limits. You shot at me, used deadly force. So, of course, officially it's a crime to be investigated. So I found that very interesting that, yeah, you're not going to hear stand your ground brought up in that case because it required you to provide the firearm, which still hasn't been to this day. And you had to have called police. So
Neither of which happened.
Neither of which he did. He ran away. He ran away and didn't try to get anybody help that he had just shot. So, like I said, am I sitting here trying to sentence him? Nope. I'm not going to judge him. I literally don't have to. In just I watched the opening statements and I watched the two first witnesses come in. And that's a whole nother subject, which we're going to talk about because you'll find it interesting and other people should find it interesting. Anybody that's been in my Wednesday night class, I always talk about how, hey, if you're in a self-defense shooting, chances are, we're talking about legitimate self-defense shootings where good civilians have to do bad things. But remember, if it ends up in court, which is rare. So first of all, statistically, it's rare for a justifiable shoot to go to court. But it happens, right? George Zimmerman, he didn't care that it was rare. He probably cared that his life was ruined, right? So, but if you end up in there, they're going to try to tear you apart any way they can. And they don't have your MS-13 tattoos or any of your other criminal history, which even though it actually can't be brought up, it's not valid, whatever. The point is they got to get you somehow. And I watched two doctors be, cross-examined in that case. And my underlying tone of the whole thing also, it was just interesting that they were like, why don't you know more specifics about this person brought in on this night that had this life-threatening injury, right? Is that rare in a hospital to have a life-threatening injury people brought in?
I mean, not as rare as you'd think. So no.
No.
Answer is no.
Yeah,
I mean, that's why they go to the hospital.
Like it only happens hundreds of times a month,
Right.
And let's say if you just narrow it down to shooting, it still happens multiple times a month. But this is just my opinion, like I said. So I'm just speaking in my opinion. The tone of the questioning and some of the things that were going on. You're familiar enough with local medical world. You know what Epic Live is, right? Or Epic, Go Live. Epic.
It's the
Got
charting
Sure.
system a lot of the hospitals use to chart patients.
So they
and stuff.
hammered away on this guy that in my take on this is it's gonna involve the fact that above my pay grade and my brain cells, they're gonna go after this sooner or later that, hey, this guy was high on this painkiller or this painkiller and should have never been allowed to say this or that, and it shouldn't matter because he's out of his gourd. I think that'll come up somewhere down the road, right? So, because there was some, when I say confessions, there were some interviews that were recorded that took place in the hospital. And I understand they're going to go after that in any way, shape, or form they can, right? Saying,
Sure.
hey, he wouldn't have said that if he wasn't on, Propofol or what is it? What's the painkiller?
Morphine or Dilaudid or maybe fentanyl or thinking of propofol. Is that
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more like an amnesiac, the propofol.
There you go. Which you could understand how somebody would want to play hell with that, saying your memory, right? Like what you could recall or how valid what you're saying is, because that was administered, that thing. So anyway, it was just interesting to hear them go after those doctors. And not like, I'm just saying, I don't think 75% of the other people sitting there listening like I was picking up on the tone of what was going on. You know, and the guy does the whole, hey, what's that thing called? Basically, it gives you the power to call up the charts.
They're doing the old Columbo.
Yeah, there you go. You know, you could and the guy's like, Epic? He's like, yeah, Epic. Yeah, thanks. And he's like, that basically gives you access to basically anybody's medical records that have been in there, right? And he's like, well, yeah. And he's like, you could call up anything you wanted, right? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, and you've been known for how long you're going to be here in court? And I could just see the whole thing coming. It's like, he did not like the fact the doctor couldn't give him more absolutes of when did you start surgery, when was it over, things like that.
So he's trying to tear down the doctor's credibility by making it look like he didn't really care enough to check into this stuff.
I'll use the word, maybe I'm overly sensitive to it, because me, looking from the outside, you're beating on a guy that did nothing but save a dude's life. He didn't care if he was a drug dealer. He didn't care if he was the shooter or not the shooter. You know how doctors are. I mean, they have a patient in front of them. They're going to save him. It's a job.
I mean, you got a mission, which is to not let this guy die, and you're going to do what you do.
And they did it, and they didn't let him die. And he would have died. Absolutely. They talked about how he would have died and why he would have died. You know, a collapsed lung, all that, let alone the bullet of the guy who survived. You know, when a bullet zips open your intestines and colon and stuff like that, you're going to, I mean, sepsis, what, couple hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, you're dead. So, yes, he saved his life. But, I mean, they're tearing him apart on there, in my opinion. Not in any elevated voice. It was just, you know what I mean? It's, you know, when Mass Ayub talks about that two-sided blade, you know, and it's so sharp you don't feel it cut, I really don't know. It'll be interesting someday when it's all over. Someday. I would love to talk to that doctor and like say, did you know the direction they were going, man? Because I was just sitting back there and he's like, so you've known for how many weeks you're going to be here and you can't even tell me when you saw him exactly and when he was out of surgery and you have access to all that? And he's like, and the one doctor's like, and they said, is this person's name? And he's like, I didn't know his name. Literally, they're picking up, like, you don't know the name of your person? And he's like, dude, I'm there to do surgery. Like, there's a hole in this dude and he's dying, so I'm there to fix him. And so his whole point was, I really don't care about anybody's name, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of irrelevant.
It would be irrelevant if, hey, you're supposed to be operating on his right leg and you cut off his left leg, right?
Yeah.
That's important. But what is this dude's name? You know, it's the dude in front of you with a bullet hole through the front of him and back of him, you know, exit wound. So it was just interesting to watch that. But I'm telling you, the opening statements for the defense attorney I thought was super weak. And just being illogical. It doesn't matter, I'm a gun guy. It's not about this is a gun issue. It's about, hey, if you're going to say self-defense, why didn't you call the police, right? If you were just defending your life in a situation you thought you were going to die, that would be, you thought you were going to die just a second ago. Wouldn't you want people's help, like the police? I mean, literally, you just thought, and you crashed a car into a guardrail, as in, like, you were in a car crash. Wouldn't you want EMS to check you out?
You would think.
Nope. Your answer is run across the parking lot, get in a, you know, SUV and run away.
Which is another technique.
It is a technique. Not one I suggest, you know, but it's a technique. Laughing.
We're having a good time today.
Hey, it's different. Did we lose half our followers?
No,
oh,
no,
my God.
We
went up 11.
Actually, I want to say thanks to Todd and Lonnie for commenting, and all these other people that are watching. Don't be creepers. Go ahead and ask some questions.
Oh, man. I think I put up an earlier thing saying we should ask questions. We really should ask questions like a week ahead of time.
We're getting better at this, right?
Yeah.
We actually got here on time today. Now the next step is let's promote it before we actually do it so people know that we're going to do it.
Wouldn't it be amazing if we actually told people, hey, next Friday we're going to be live at blah, blah, blah.
And periodically share and like the video.
And periodically, I'm going to think of some words right now. Periodically share and like the video. That would be good. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to waste, when I say waste people's time, it's let's just let the cards fall where they will. Let's let the judicial system, whether we like it or not, it's what we have. Let's let it work. But it was very interesting. And I will be trying, had talked to the Lynn County Assistant DA and looking for updates here about who's on the stand when. I'm going to go back and listen to more either tomorrow or closing case on Wednesday, I think will be fun. I'd like to hear also the closing arguments. So I heard the opening arguments.
What kind of... I don't think fascinates the word, but maybe that I find interesting is if your whole basis of or experience with the judicial system is on TV, you think these trials go on forever, but they really go pretty quick.
Well, some of these are pretty quick, but here is the other thing. You're right. Here's the other thing that I am absolutely guilty of, but on TV, right? Yeah. Is first of all, is learning I encourage people to go down there and experience that. I also encourage you to walk out in the hallway and look at all the lists of all the trials going on and at what hour they are and in what room they are, what courtroom they are, right?
Right.
And
Was this
and
in the federal courthouse or the
county.
county?
So,
Okay.
so I'm going to try to be more, I am more interested. I'm going to go try to get more educated to learn about the fact when people say, why are they settling this? You know, and the local DA is always just settling this and settling that. And I get it. I've been guilty of saying that, and I still feel that way about certain things. But I am learning factually there's not enough time, as in, like, there's only so many hours of courtrooms open, right? And we only have so many courtrooms and judges. And it's inconceivable to most people to realize how many trials are going on of really bad things, let alone all the civil cases that were going on, you know,
Right.
regular. I was down there to be an expert witness in a divorce court thing on value of some firearms and some things. And so what was funny is I literally, that's why I went down there, whatever, 4 hours, 5 hours early. And I'm like, I'm going to listen to this trial. And in that time frame, I got a message, you know, an hour and a half before I'm supposed to be in this other thing, they settle, which happens a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe they argue for an hour or two and then they're like, screw it, let's just sign this and be done with it. So they settled the case that I was going to go into. And so I got to, you know, do what I want. So if I wasn't so busy this week, I'm still going to make time. I want to go hear more. And the one thing I would be fascinated is actually to hear them question Mr. Martin. That would be interesting. Yeah. That's enough about that
So
for right
Sean,
now.
Sean actually had a question though.
Sean.
Were there other Sean Nutt? As we're getting questions here. Were there others?
Sean, there was other people there.
Yeah.
And so I get to talk about any personal experience I have, right? This is just my opinion based off my experience in law enforcement like you have. And I've had a little experience. I'm not saying, so just bear with me. You can make fun of how little experience I have. I have definitely been around a lot of cars that smelled like marijuana. I have definitely been around people that smell like marijuana. I know what the smell of marijuana is like. What I found fascinating was the entire group of people that chose that when we took our 15-minute break between there's opening statements, both sides, right?
Right.
Judge gave us 15 minutes. Everybody gets a potty break, all that, right? Including the jury, whatever. And then now we're going to start with the opening witnesses. There was a lot of weed smoking going on in that 15 minutes on the property of the Lynn County Courthouse. That's my opinion based off the smell when people were standing in the hallway and walked by me.
What's that phrase? I smelled something consistent with
God.
the odor of
yes,
marijuana.
That's exactly that. And I looked at all four. Now, first of all, there's 4 armed deputies sitting in this room. I found that interesting, and I get why. So, and there are 4 different locations, and they had a very serious meeting about who was going to stand where, whatever. And I just, when the people walked by, and I was like, oh my God, because I'm famous for, and I don't have an awesome sense of smell, not like some people. But if you're going to walk within 3 feet of me, and you probably just smoked weed with your windows rolled up, I can smell that. And I just kind of looked over them, and they're like, you know, like, don't ask. Like, they deal with it all the time. And it's not the issue of the day. Like, let's not worry about it. But come on, man. Try harder. Go hide somewhere.
Try harder.
Try harder. Put on that oil or whatever that people wear. That
Use a little patchouli.
Yeah. Another part of that. So, by the way, Sean, you can go watch it if you live locally and you want to go watch the rest of it. It's going on probably like right now, and there's more tomorrow. So, I would encourage you to go do so.
So Pat's got to check out. He says he's crushing his cell phone battery. So thanks for checking us out, Pat. You can watch it later. We'll post.
Hi, Pat.
We'll post it later.
He's a good guy.
Yep. Appreciate you watching.
One more thing, by the way, it was interesting. When you go into the courthouse, it should be no shock to you people that you should be aware that you can't wear a gun in there, and you can talk about this change and that change and blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, I'm not going to walk into a building that has a no gun sign on it signed by the sheriff. So you can't wear a gun into the courtroom anyway, so whatever. So no knife, no gun. I did have my first responder, you know, medical ankle bracelet. But,
band.
Yeah, there you
Carrier.
go. Band. And so it was funny, you know, I went through there. It's just like going through the airport, and I took all my metal off, and I couldn't get it. I kept dinging the thing, right? The guy's like, you know, you sure you don't have anything? I'm like, dude, I got nothing. So we really never could figure out why I was setting off the thing you walk through. So he had to wand me, and he's like, need you to pull up your pant legs. I'm like, all right. I'm like, this is just a tourniquet. You know, I wanted to say that before I started pulling my jeans up.
Yeah.
And it was funny. He like looked. He's like, "You carry your tourniquet down there?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Mine's right here." You know, he's in uniform, and you can see the little bulge there. And I'm like, "Good on you." It was like it was like the Jeep wave, right? But it's tourniquet wave. We're going to start a new thing. It is a brotherhood.
It is a brotherhood.
We're going to start the tourniquet wave. We really should.
I'm just happy to see that he's carrying one.
Yes, he is. And so were the other people there. So those dudes are on the ball, you know, and women, by the way. So that was interesting to see. Saw lots of familiar faces I know, and they looked at me funny, like they know I'm from the gun store, you know. Like, what are you here for? But I highly encourage other people to go do that. Unfortunately, trust me, there'll be other opportunities to listen to a court case of someone who killed somebody here in Lynn County because it's not that rare. So
Not as rare as it was at one time.
no, not at all. Let's talk about anything else we have to answer before we really talk about your agenda. Not really?
Nope,
Okay.
I don't think there's any more questions.
Fire
right
away,
now,
Mike.
so,
What else were you going to talk about?
What we got here?
Training in the military.
Hold on. Yep, training in the military. Kind of. Okay. So
Vast, extensive training of firearms
the
in the
vast,
military.
extensive firearms training in the military. So we've kind of talked about this before. I wrote an article on it a couple of years ago, but it just comes to the forefront. This myth that people have that because you're in the military or have been in the military at some point in your life that you're a firearms expert.
Can I hold on? I'm going to
Yeah.
pause 1 minute. Pause 1 minute.
Yeah.
Can we have the other airborne? You are an airborne ranger. I get to say that, right? No. Airborne. You're Army. You're something.
Airborne.
You jumped out of things,
Yeah,
didn't you?
everybody
Yeah.
can hear me. Yeah,
Yeah.
Army Airborne.
Yeah, Army Airborne. So you should leave your thing on so you can chime in because
Okay.
I'm the least important person in this conversation.
Yeah, well, we
'Cause-
kind of talked about it a little bit before, but what brought this up or what kind of brought this in forefront of my mind is the Army is getting a new handgun to replace the M9
SIG
Beret.
P320
SIG P320.
with
and
some
it's
fancy military
yeah,
name
it's
that
gonna be
somebody will
M-
immediately answer because
M
they're
something. Yeah, somebody
Yeah.
that's way more into this stuff than me, find out what M number that is. But the M9 is the old
Yeah.
handgun.
I get it. It's their new sidearm.
Right, it's a new sidearm. And the 101st Airborne, one of the units within the 101st Airborne was picked to like unveil this thing and roll it out. And they went to the range and big media coverage
With lots of cameras.
with lots of cameras
For
and
lots of
people
photo ops.
and lots of photos. And the
saw them.
stances and grips displayed were horrific.
Were you sad a little bit?
It killed me a little
Yeah.
bit. I died a little.
When you
inside.
guys have when you guys that have actually served and you got to be like the football it's like, come on, man.
But the thing is, I don't blame those guys
No,
because
they're students.
they were not taught properly.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a reason for that because the whole kind of mission of the military is not sidearm driven. It's crew serve weapon driven. It's big groups. It's large caliber weapons. Sidearms are secondary weapons at best, and I don't have a percentage, but more than half of people in the military probably never even touch one their entire time they're in the military.
For the most part, isn't it officers and machine gun?
Yeah, so it depends on
carry?
So your officers might get issued one, air crew, mortar gunners,
Right.
assistant gunners on a machine gun, people that need to use both hands a lot.
How about a medic? Did they ever get them when you guys were in?
Well, so medics used to like World War II, whatever, but nowadays
No, I mean when
they
you were
most-
in.
they
Let's
mostly
say
carry rifles. They carry
80s,
rifles.
90s. Really?
They carry rifles, yeah.
Might be handy to have a handgun.
Sure, it'd be handy for anybody to have a handgun, but there's never going to be the primary weapon because we can both agree, I think, that having a rifle is better than having a pistol.
Until you're stuck in a tiny little corner.
Right, but for
I get
most things, right?
Yeah.
You know, everything being equal, a rifle would be more efficient
Mm-hmm.
than a handgun. So that's why handgun training is not really focused on in the military as much as people think it is, and that's why we have horrific pictures like that.
Let me ask you guys though. So, have you ever seen footage, seen in real life, I'm not going to ask you about your experiences, but have you ever, do you know of documented cases where guys have to use their handguns to fight in the middle of bad stuff?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Isn't it the worst of the worst situation if you're down to your handgun in the military?
I would imagine.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So, in a way, wouldn't that mean that you need the most training on that tool because it's the worst of scenarios?
Well, yes, you would need the most training, but what I'm telling you is it's not got the emphasis.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Now, Mike and I were talking earlier, and really quickly, Sean Nutt and Brent Rowe. Brent says it's the M17, and Sean Nutt says, or maybe the M18 sub. Is
So
what
maybe
they're using.
subcompact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what Mike and I were talking about earlier was
Hi, Brent.
even with the training that we do get in the military, it's so it has to deal with so many people, and you have to get through it so quickly. And when I was in, which was over 20 years ago, when you're on the range, you're trying to get so many people through that range to qualify, and there is not a lot of training or any training that they just take people out to the firing range and say, let's get better at this.
Right. There's no
It's,
constructive
let's
criticism.
qualify
Yep.
and let's use Miles gear. That's it.
My very first experience with a handgun in the military was very, very similar to that. It's I'm going to date myself a little bit. We still had the 1911s, right?
There's guys right now bowing down when you said
They're
that.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine actually, like, you did this and it would rattle because it was
That
like
makes it reliable.
very
I'm
loose.
cool with that part.
Low tolerances.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was a mortar assistant gunner, so 81 millimeter mortar assistant gunner, and that was my designated primary weapon. I never was taught how. I'd never shot a pistol in my life because prior to that, I was more like into hunting shotguns and whatnot. Right? I'm like 19 years old. They hand me this thing. They said, "You're going to go qualify with your primary weapon." I'm like, "Okay."
Up until then, it had just been your Model 37 20 gauge single shot Winchester.
Exactly.
All right, or 37A. We started-
37A.
All right.
We've already beat that horse.
Okay.
All right. Anyway.
But at least we didn't hit it with a hammer
We
like you did the
not-
goat.
I know.
Anyway, go.
So we go out to the range and we qualified at 25 meters, and I had no idea what I was doing. I probably looked
25 meters?
Yeah, it's 25 meters.
With a 1911.
Yeah, and
Do
I
you have
probably
to shoot one-handed?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Why did they train people to shoot one-handed?
I don't know. So you could drag your buddy. I don't know.
Or we've been training.
You're wounded. You know, there's a lot
This
of
is
reasons.
just like what Army guys say. I'm
Well,
saying
I mean,
Army
we
guys.
did it seated, kneeling.
Yep. So all these different unorthodox positions. But my point, I guess, is I don't have pictures, but I probably looked a lot like those guys because I was just making it up.
I hear you.
And that was 30 years ago. They haven't gotten any better at it,
Yeah.
at training these guys.
Somebody probably is better at it. They're out there yelling at you right now. But like you said, these small pockets or special groups that they get more training than other people, or it's more applicable to their.
I did not get any actual what I would call pistol training or handgun
Sure.
training until much later when I was in a specialized unit, where there's more chance that I would actually use one for something other than just to
if you're a lawyer,
prop up my MRE or whatever.
if you're a lawyer or a dad, you should never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. But I don't care because I'm a rebel. Hey, mystery guy in the corner.
I'm a rebel. I'm a loner.
Yeah, mystery guy.
You
in the
don't want to
corner.
hang out with a girl like me, Dottie.
And maybe he actually can't answer. When I say answer honestly, maybe he can't completely disclose. What's the best handgun training you've had so far?
Oh, it was definitely with you guys. It was
Yeah.
definitely with Cedar Valley Outfitters.
Ching ching.
Absolutely.
It was neat because you're so. When I say open-minded, like, oh, you just like that guy because he soaked it up. No, I mean, you're a critical thinker, and if you thought you saw bullshit, you would have thrown a flag, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so.
And you were there with a loved one, correct? Mm-hmm. So if you thought anything was unsafe or stupid, you would have told us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I find, and this isn't like, oh my God, make Ernie feel good. This was the awe-inspiring thing. Remember when I said when I met you, I thought you'd be a lot better? Remember we went and shot we shot a Glock 23.
It's a myth.
It's a myth. Like, I'm like, this is cool. Like, I've heard, so-and-so's in the Army and so-and-so's, but hey, I'm going to go shoot with Mike. And
You thought I was going to be like the 1,000-yard sniper dude that
I thought
shot
you
the
were- I thought
eye
you were-
out of a fly, right?
Again, it was just the idea of, it's not like, oh, Mike shot a baseball-sized group and I want him to shoot a marble-sized group. I don't care about that. What I'm saying is it's sad to me, Ernie the civilian, that there's not more. And I get it, people are going to say there's not time. There's just like Shane said, you got to go qualify 200 guys, and it's like, we're not paying overtime. Did you ever get paid overtime in the military?
No,
Probably
never.
not. But, it's like you only have this date, you have this range, you have this much ammo, go get it done. So it's almost the same thing with police departments. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're
there's
not-
a very
Where they do pay overtime.
good parallel to that. And another point I was, in our discussion that Shane and I had was,
We are
I'm
allowed to call you Shane, right? You're
yeah,
out of the
yeah.
super secret special forces
sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and this may blow some people's mind, and it kind of goes with what you'd said. Hey, I thought Mike might be more, cool or whatever. I believe I've been retired for 13 years. I believe I am better prepared to defend myself now than I was 13 years ago.
Well, no doubt.
Because of the focus of the training. So 13 years ago, my focus was small unit tactics. I'm going to go everywhere as a group. I mean, we talked about escape and evasion as a single person and hand-to-hand and whatnot, but it's kind of like it was like a familiarization. We didn't concentrate on that because the things we specifically concentrated on was working as a team and as a group. Now, I've got to worry about me.
You're a guy walking through the mall.
I've been concentrating on individual reactions for the last 13 years, and I feel as far as that goes, I'm way better prepared now than I was 13 years ago.
Sure.
Is it a logical comparison? Does it make sense to compare military to civilian in regards to the training that you receive in the military is a certain way? It may be the best training for what you're trying to get out, right? Is a soldier who's going to go to a specific spot and they're not having to think about all these problem solving skills that you need to have as a civilian. So it's almost like comparing soccer to football, right?
Right.
But
I
so
would agree.
often somebody will say, well, you were in the military, so now
Yeah,
you should be able to handle.
And they take to kind of go farther with your analogy, right? So they're saying, well, they're both balls, so you should be an expert at both of them because they're both, you know, both games involve a ball of some kind. Whereas in the military, you have a gun for this purpose, and in the civilian world, we're using a gun for this purpose, and they're kind of two totally different purposes.
And the
with a lot of
conversation-
different rules of engagement and everything else.
The conversation has been brought up 500 times before and by a lot more famous people than me. But, you know, the point is also how often, and I know you get to roll your eyes. I don't. Like I said, I know here's I'm going
You
to
can
use
roll
your
your
words.
eyes, man. It's the United
I
States
know.
of America.
Yeah, I'll roll my eyes if I
You
want.
do what you want.
I was, you know, I didn't serve, so I don't like to say anything negative about anything in the military. You know, even I read an article written by Army guys the other day. Did you see the guy they called out for being a fake Green Beret?
I see those all the time.
He was African. No, this was just recently. He had
No, I'm saying I belong to a couple Facebook
Okay.
groups. They out guys all the time.
This was
so I'm
on
not-
Fox
yeah.
News, everything else. African American guy, maybe like in his 30s.
Yeah.
But he had a black beret on, and so they're like, "Hey, one easy thing was spotted," you know, and then they just tore him apart. And even the article was written by a military guy.
Sure.
And they literally said, even though this guy, you know, his wife and the guy who was like the, what do you call him, the honor thief dude, even his wife had claimed to be in the military.
Stolen Valor guy.
Stolen Valor. And so they were just going to town on him. But, you know, this is what military guys can do that I never would. And it's like, they said, even a lowly cook would know this, this, and this, and this. And it's like, see, that's like something I wouldn't say. Like, you guys can flip each other crap. And you can give the guy making food crap. But I'm still the guy that sits back and says, hey, the dude signed out of the dotted line, gave up 3 years, 4 years, whatever, right? He went and did something I didn't do. And has there ever been, like, cooks in the military that are still at a base that gets bombed?
Yep.
Yeah. Or suicide bombers over in,
Now,
like, let's
yeah,
say.
for sure. There's no front lines anymore. But I'm going to go way off on a tangent here.
Go.
All right.
We like tangents.
So we're going to talk about Stolen Valor real
much
quick,
time
and
do
I'm
we
going
have?
to become unpopular right now. Sometimes I think the guys in the military are too quick to point out Stolen Valor because let me give you an example.
Okay.
We've already established I retired 13 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I have my uniform hanging in my closet exactly the way it was on the day I retired. I used to know exactly what every single medal meant and the order of precedence and what way they should be worn. I haven't dealt with that stuff in 13 years. I have like a 2 megabyte brain. There's only so much room, and I got other stuff that like got put in it. I don't remember what some of those badges and stuff mean anymore.
Yeah.
So is it possible that a guy may show up to like a Veterans Day parade and he was in Vietnam and he puts on his uniform and he screws it up, and then somebody's like, you Stolen Valor because you're wearing your badges wrong.
Yeah.
I think we're too quick to judge people sometimes, and people can just make mistakes. You know, it's not always malicious.
Sure.
That's my 2 cents on that. Some guys I just think they're just too quick to call Stolen Valor when it may just be a simple mistake.
Yeah. This doesn't seem to be the case in this one.
No, I'm
but
not saying it is, but I'm just saying in general sometimes.
No,
we
I've read.
you know, we just like to eat people up real quick without even giving them a chance.
I've read exactly what you said, and this is like totally like I don't know what I'm talking about, but bear with me. When you talked about what each thing stands for or where it should be placed on the uniform, you know, and all of it, and I watched in a group one time where somebody calls this guy out and like, what an idiot, doesn't he know this, this, and this? And then somebody comes in, they're like, dude, that's 30 years old, and you used to do it this way. To where,
Right.
you know, so it's like, you know, before you jump the gun and say, you know, this is stupid or this is wrong, sometimes it was done differently. And I don't know the order of what you hang medals in your chest. I don't have one. So
I didn't have as many. I didn't have very many
right?
medals. So
I look like a goddamn Mexican general, man.
do you?
Oh yeah.
We should like to see her sometime. You should that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it. I don't know anything about them.
And some medals you get because you were a part of that battalion,
Right.
Or because you were part of that
So you
company.
get unit
and
awards.
and that company earned that stuff. You didn't earn it. Somebody else
Yep, and
earned
you
it.
gotta put those in the right place.
I watched some people online get torn apart about that when you wear what do your unit gets a combat patch, but not everybody was in combat? Or how do you want to say
Yeah,
it?
so if you're in the unit and you're in the hostile fire area, then you can wear the how that see now I can't remember shoulder sleeve insignia for former wartime service.
Yes.
That's a mouthful, right?
That is.
That's the patch you wear on over here, right? And then the other one is the current unit you're assigned to over on the left side. And so you're authorized to wear whatever unit you belong to at the time.
I guess the one I saw that was like, it was a recent issue, or not a recent, it was a local issue, was like some people wearing a patch that, yes, they belong to those people, that unit, that group, that whatever. They just didn't belong to it at the time that it got its combat.
Right.
So they don't take lightly on that, each other, those guys. in
No,
the
no,
Army.
and I'm not saying there's not a lot of stolen valor out there. I'm just like, sometimes we need to like
Chill.
check things out first
Yeah.
before we start accusing people of things.
Let's go back before Mike's tirade. What do I hear all the time is, I don't need to go to this class because I was in the military. Have you ever heard that, Shane?
Yeah, and Mike and I were talking about that before.
See, I like it when you guys get going about it.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because, like I said, when you said, "Oh, you can eye roll," it's America. I don't. I never put down anybody's military service, but yeah, you could say I was in the military and I was the most kick-ass, awesome diesel mechanic there ever was. But
Right.
that guy was in the military, right?
And I haven't touched my weapon since I qualified in basic training. And oh, by the way, I was a kick-ass diesel mechanic for 6 years, and then I got out.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You meet people from all different ages that come in and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to sign up for this class, or I'm signing me and my wife, or other way, I'm signing up me and my husband, whatever." And the fact that they're a veteran will come up. I'll be like, you don't even have to take the class. You can take your DD 214 down there, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. They're like, yeah, I know that, but I don't know anything about the laws. I'm like, wow. And those are the people that we give them that class free because that's the right attitude.
So that's another thing that Shane and I discussed. It's kind of a slippery slope, and we've talked about this quite a bit. It's your right to be able to defend yourself, and I believe that having a firearm as a tool to defend yourself is a right.
Constitutional right.
So constitutional right. So there should be no metric or test or
No.
mandatory training or anything
No.
to exercise a right.
And we charge people for training, don't we?
Right.
And yet I believe there shouldn't be any legally required.
But on the other hand, you as a responsible person, you should seek out this training and not just say, "Oh, I was in the Army 30 years ago and I went to basic training, so yeah, I don't need to go to training." But do you know where you can carry that handgun? Like, can you go into a bank? Can you go into the mall? Can you drink beer? You should seek these things out if you're responsible and
Sure.
get educated.
Sure.
Well,
I
something
agree.
that Mike and I talked about, which is very unique. It's a very unique difference to the military and firearms as opposed to a civilian and firearms, is the consequence of pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
It's not completely removed in the military, but when you pull the trigger, it's just much more reduced. But in the civilian world, if you pull that trigger, unless you're on a firing range, the consequences of your actions are severe. And you need to
Absolutely
understand
true.
the consequences of your actions. So you don't want to get training? Fine. But you can't plead ignorance when you have consequences that you have to deal with.
Yeah. And something that gets brought up by, I'll say, the other side, and even in the gun world, actually. In the gun world, you have guys that are like, "Hey, you should have to be able to shoot this, this, or this." And I'm sick of seeing these people getting issue permits and never took a shooting test. And my simple question is, would you rather have somebody that's an expert on the use of force and when it's legal? Would you rather that be their skill, or would you rather them be an Olympic grade target shooter? Because I'll take the person that knows when to make the right decision, the legal decision,
Right.
an
Yeah,
ethical
that's
decision.
the more practical skill, I guess.
And that's back to the idea of, people are like, "Oh, you guys are happy if somebody can shoot a garbage can at 10 feet. No. My point is, I will take average shooting skills any day and somebody that put tons of effort into knowing the law, right?
Or
And-
knowing
or-
when to
Or
when
maybe,
to try to hit that garbage can.
or my God, maybe some training on how to avoid it, or how to
Yeah.
see it coming, or how
Yeah.
to stay out of it, and all that. So it's not like, it's just like you said, it's not like we don't believe be the best you can be and learn all this stuff you can do. It's just that I don't believe in it being required by the government. That drives me nuts. And there's people that even on the Facebook, on my page, when I'll say, you think those are gun people on there, they're all, there's a lot of people that are Second Amendment, Second Amendment, Second Amendment. And, I'm all about the Second Amendment, but you always hit the but, right? Big butt, Dottie. So they start talking about how you shouldn't be able to get a permit unless you can do this. And then in my day, you had to qualify. And under Zeller, you had to shoot at 25 yards. Now it's only 10. And now, oh my God, there's not even a shooting test. It's like, I thought you said you believe in the Second Amendment. Like, I'm never gonna waver on the fact that I don't think there should be a shooting test. I don't even think you should have to take a class. If you can legally own a gun, you should be able to carry it. That's what I believe the Second Amendment means. But,
amen. Harumph.
Well, yeah, but by God, yes, go get training.
Yes.
But anyway. Have we beaten that horse enough? Should
No,
we go back to killing a goat with a hammer?
I think we had a good discussion there, but Paul says he kind of agrees. We talked about the law enforcement side. He's like, I went to the academy and I don't need that class, is a phrase he hears.
Yeah.
Kind of like I was in the military. I don't need to take a handgun class. So same thing. So people get complacent. And
what's Dave? I suspect the U.S. Air Force firearms training is way less than Army.
Dave, I've never been to U.S. Air Force firearms training. I've seen some of it, and I would probably agree with you.
I did. I had a friend who he went in the Navy. Would have been the late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s. And I really, looking back, it's like I would have thought he was joking. Now I realize he's not. He qualified with the M9 Beretta in the Navy. This is just his experience. That it literally had a little laser adapter, right?
Oh, so yeah. Like what do they call that?
They shot indoors.
It's like indoors at a a computerized,
and it was a reduced target. So we're only going to shoot.
I think they call it the eye marksman. I
yeah.
could be totally wrong, but that seems to be familiar.
So I'm like, oh, you mean they did that and they gave you training on that before you shot real bullets? He's like, dude, we never had to shoot real bullets.
No,
and
that's
like,
it.
It's like that's it. And he was a sub dude, so. I think everything, now granted, if you got to use a handgun to defend yourself on a submarine, that's probably going to happen pretty close and you're probably going to be able to shoot it okay. But it still just blew my mind.
You're probably a cook and your name's probably Nikki.
Well,
and keto.
Wow. I'm not saying anything. That's all funny to you, Army guys.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Steven Seagal.
Yes. So the whole point is like, and then at that time, if you look at what's going on, he literally said it was budget cut stuff. Like, we're not going to spend a bunch of money during the mid-'90s on ammo to have people qualify with a handgun in the Navy. It's like, it was just interesting.
Yep. Very true.
Steven Seagal, didn't he get arrested the other day? Domestic
Did he
charges
really?
or something, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Somebody will Google it and let us know pretty soon.
Somebody let us know.
I don't want to ignore any famous use of the pistol. Oh, thank you for reminding Mike of his 25 people. We're losing. They're dropping like flies, Mike. Come on.
We've been consistent.
Yeah. Fire truck.
Fire truck. Fire truck.
You can't think of anything else to say.
Say fire truck.
Hey, that actually makes me think of DSC school. So let's get through what you have. Mr. Magic Time Guy, how much time do we have?
About 10, 15 minutes.
You're kidding me.
So
oh, my God.
Let's talk real quick.
We
safety
tangent
rules.
all over the place.
We did. It was awesome.
Evolution of Satety.
So what brings this up is I think it's been about a week ago now.
Employee at a gun range. Working on a gun.
Shot a guy in the parking lot. Is that correct? Yep.
Father of three.
It was
Yep.
very tragic.
Totally random, stupid. And when I say random, you had a gun that was loaded, pointed in the direction where there could be people.
Yep.
So you can only say so random. But
and immediately people are jumping on he wasn't following the safety rules, right?
Yeah.
As if, that would have fixed it.
Yeah.
And, kind of and I think you're going to agree with me because we follow the same philosophy. Having specific safety rules does not necessarily make you safer. We've evolved past that. What I mean by that is we don't even follow our own safety rules.
That sounds really bad the way you say it, but keep going.
So let me finish.
Dirty.
Let me finish the thought. It's like I'm forming it as I talk, right? So if the first safety rule is you don't ever point the gun towards anything you don't want to destroy.
Oh, you're talking NRA safety rules. Okay.
So I'm talking about
all right. The
a
old
list of safety rules, right?
Yeah.
If we never
Colonel
point
Cooper.
the gun towards something that we don't intend on destroying, then we'd never holster it.
No.
When it's pointing towards our leg, we'd never unholster it because it's
Mine's
pointing
pointed
towards
at my right ankle right now.
Right, it's pointing towards the floor. So we know that that's not even true.
Yeah.
The other, another safety rule that's pretty common, treat every gun as if it's loaded.
People don't do that.
Nobody does that
You
because
can't really do that.
you would never be able to clean a Glock. You would never be able to have any guns in your gun store because they're pointed all different directions, right?
Mostly at my employees.
Yeah, they're going to be pointed somewhere. So I'm just saying you need to look at safety rules not as a list of like do's and don'ts, kind of more like that affirmative defense we talked about. You need to look at it as a concept. You need to weigh risk versus benefit and not have any absolutes.
Like, you don't have to pull the trigger on your gun to prove to me that it's unloaded in my gun store.
Right.
When I had you drop the magazine and rack the slide several times and the bullet fell out and you racked the slide another time, you don't have to now point it at the ground.
So,
and
and that's the risk versus benefit concept, right? So we've already made sure the chamber's clear. We've racked it a few times. We saw the bullet come out.
Yeah.
What's the risk of pulling the trigger? It's probably greater than we need to.
Leprechauns pooped a bullet in the chamber.
Right.
Yeah.
So we probably don't need to do that.
Yeah. And even though that's rare, let's just not do it. You already showed me the gun's empty.
So that's another reason, we don't point the gun over the berm.
Yeah.
Or any of these other, our safety rules that we kind of follow, or the safety concepts we kind of follow, is finger somewhere other than the trigger until you're ready to shoot.
Preferably where the slide meets the frame.
Right. So a good tactile reference. Keep the gun pointed in a generally safe direction whenever possible. Right. So no absolutes there.
Because you can fall down on a gun range.
And you can.
Yeah.
And then the last rule is kind of the whole big picture rule, which is realize that you are in charge of a firearm. If used negligently or maliciously, you could seriously injure or kill yourself or somebody else.
Yeah.
That's more of a concept rather than a hard and fast rule. And I think that's just the way safety as far as gun handling needs to go.
Yeah.
It's kind of evolved.
Well, you saw, Barrett Kendrick made a film. And, yeah, I mean, everybody's jumping on, and it's a good bandwagon to jump on, as in something happens that's horrendous. This father of three gets killed, right? Exiting his vehicle, going to the gun range.
Yeah.
And there's no good way for that guy to, get killed. It's just, the point is it could have been avoided. And that's where you're right. The gun world has to own that and has to say, well, okay, when next time I'm around and somebody's doing something like that, say something. Right. See something, say something, right?
Right.
If you can, like, hey, I saw a guy leave a piece of luggage alone in the airport, so I'm going to go say something about it, then do the same thing in the gun world when it comes to Billy's working on a gun over here and waving the gun around in the wrong direction. Go say something to him. Do it. Do it nicely, but do it.
Right. So
There's been some local law enforcement. There's local stories. Not going to repeat those stories as in which one it is, but I know people that have, in the surrounding counties included, that have discharged a gun when they were cleaning it, because that's part of taking it apart, right? You got to pull the trigger.
We had one happen at one of our qualification shoots. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Pacow. Right behind me.
Yeah. The funny thing is Jesse and I knew it happened. You were in the middle of qualifying somebody, right? Right. It was a renewal shoot.
Yep.
And you turned around why is there a gun noise coming from somewhere
behind me?
Yeah, coming from somewhere other than It's yep. But anyway, we won't name names.
No, but it happens.
But and here's the thing: guy shot a gun when he shouldn't have, doing things we told him not to. Why did nobody get hurt? Because at least the one thing he was doing is pointing the gun straight down at the earth and not concrete.
Right, or at anybody else.
Or at anybody else. But it's is there a pucker factor involved? Yeah. Yeah. Probably the least amount for you, because I could tell you were okay, here's a guy next to me shooting, but he's not physically pulling the trigger right now, and something went bang back there. And you turn around and look at Jesse, and Jesse's looking at me, and I'm like, wow.
Just wow.
Yep. And you're here to renew your permit. Remember?
Because you've already had it for 5 years.
You've already had it for 5 years, but you about shot yourself in the toe. So, all right.
But that's kind of my little rant on safety rules as a concept rather than a hard and fast thing.
I hear you. Something everybody could actually, and we're if we all work on it together. Honestly, if every single gun person handled their guns responsibly, that would eliminate 99% of all accidents, right?
Right.
Not mechanically there's a failure in a spring that's 100 years old, breaks, and your gun goes off without you literally ever having your finger near the trigger.
I always bring everything back. I mean, I spent a good part of my life in the military, so it's my filter. Right? So
use your Army filter.
When I went to Ranger School, we learned how to give an operations order. Paragraph 3, the very first part of paragraph 3 of an operations order is
Shane?
The commander's intent. I'm sure that sounds familiar, possibly. Yeah. The commander's intent, right? The commander's intent is what do I want to happen as the boss, right? This is the goal here. Everything else is how we're going to, meet this goal or complete this mission. But the commander's intent is, this is what I want to happen.
Yeah.
He doesn't care how it happens. That's just what he wants to happen. So I always think of things like, what is the commander's intent as far as firearm safety? And if you go back, if you're confused about what you should do, if you don't remember the rules, if you don't know what you're supposed to do, the commander's intent in this situation is not to shoot anybody.
Yeah.
How am I going to accomplish that? There's a lot of different ways to do it.
Sure.
That's safety as a concept, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Army filter. How many more minutes do I get to ramble? Because I got a lot of important things to say. Do I have to do it like really fast, like a McGrath car ad?
Yes, go.
All right.
And go.
So first of all, my as in CVO hosted medical class sold out last Saturday. That was awesome. Your medical class over at Crossroads in Johnson, Iowa, at Crossroads Shooting Sports sold out.
Sold out. Both sponsored by the Iowa Firearms Coalition.
Yep. Kurt, Iowa Firearms Coalition. We'll throw him under the bus. He's doing a great job, but I'm going to throw him under the bus from the point of view that I want him to keep doing what he's doing, which is push Iowa Firearms Coalition in the direction of keep educating people and rounding out people's skills, let alone they're fighting a good fight, as in legal-wise for us.
Yes.
But I like the fact that he believes in education. That's the way of the future there. Or as Ken at Reno Guns and Range says, aiming, what is it? Aiming for education? So I don't know. I better come up with a better. He has a really good little tagline.
That's your brother from another mother, kid.
It is. Yeah, both worlds. Okay. Defensive Firearms Coach School. Rich, just going to bring that up, which is March 23rd, 24th, 25th. This is not like, oh, come work for CVO, be affiliated with CVO. I'm simply hosting that, and you are the teacher, and then there's another guy coming to town to watch you, and really, I think he just wants a reason to come see us in Iowa.
Hang out, yeah.
But anyway, for people that want to get involved in being a firearms instructor for themselves or someone else or whoever, go forth and be awesome.
You're affording people an opportunity to get some certification.
Yes. Pretty good. I mean, it's a very demanding class. When some people demanding physically, it's got some time. It costs $800. It's well worth it. You'll probably easily go recoup your money if you're really going to go forth and actually train students. But I think there's even people that would benefit from it if they have the money. If you're the guy that trains all your friends and all your buddies' wives or cousins or brothers come to you, then that'd be a good investment for somebody.
Absolutely. Yep.
I truly believe in it. So, and there'll be a link up for that too, and I'll keep people posted on it. You have another medical class January 27th at my store.
Yep. 27th.
Shane's saying go really fast. Hurry up. Tell them about the training. I'll put the link up there.
So 27th January at your store, CVO.
4 to 8.
4 to 8.
And then you're doing another one in February already you already have a January date at Crossroads of what?
That's on the 21st of January.
What time are their classes?
Noon to 4.
So if you guys don't know, there's my camera. Johnson, Iowa, as in I call it Des Moines, but I know it's a different place. All over there. That area, medical training. Go see Mike. Go see Sheena and Tom over at Crossroads Shooting Sports. They've been very nice. We work well together. We play well together, and we're going to do a lot more things together.
Sure.
There might even be some shooting classes over there soon that you should keep your eye on their schedule. So...
And all of this can be found at cedarvalleyoutfitters.org.
Did they hear you, or am I supposed to say that?
No, they
That's
did.
awesome.
They heard me. They heard me
Dude,
say it.
we need to add like paycheck money for him to keep reminding people of that. Is there anybody we ignored that we got to answer questions for?
Nope, I think we got everybody.
We're back down to 29
we're
people.
about 29, man.
It's mind warping. I got to go back to work. I got things to do.
Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, Paul Fitzpatrick. Thank you,
Sean.
David, Sean, Lonnie, again, Ivan.
Brent Rowe for saying M17. M17. I don't know. I can't think of anything else.
All right.
How can you claim self-defense? What was that one? How can you... I'll go home and focus on it. And I did read a story the other day. It was horrifying. It was about a red Chevy truck. So I want to remind everybody, you got to keep out for those. You got to keep an eye out for a red Chevy truck. When do we need to leave, Shane? Right now? Do I need to tell the world goodbye?
Yeah.
Mystery? All right. Mike, thanks for being here. Shane, thanks for putting up with me getting here 90 seconds before it starts. For everybody else out there, thanks for listening to us. Remember, share it with your friends, like it, whatever. Put it on their timeline. See who you can get to just friend you. And as always, keep your eye out for the red Chevy truck.
Peace out.
Peace out.